see it in their eyes. Empty people filled with care, heading who knows where. On they go through private pain, living fear to fear. Laughter hides their silent cries. Only Jesus hears. People need the Lord. People need the Lord. And at the end of broken dreams, He's the open door. People need the Lord. People need the Lord. When will we realize that people need the Lord? We are called to take His light to a world where wrong seems right. What could be too great a cause for sharing life with one who's lost? Through His life, our hearts can feel all the grief they bear. They must hear the words of life only we can share. People need the Lord. People need the Lord. At the end of broken dreams, He's the open door. People need the Lord. People need the Lord. When will we realize people need the Lord?
Good morning and welcome to Enon Baptist Church. This morning we are going to worship together and study Acts chapter 7 verse 17 through 29. The title of the message today is Moses the Follower. Acts 7, 19 through 29. 17 through 29. But when the time of the promise drew near, which God had sworn to Abraham, the people grew and multiplied in Egypt, till another king arose who did not know Joseph. This man dealt treacherously with our people and oppressed our forefathers, making them expose their babies so that they might not live. At this time Moses was born and was well pleasing to God. And he was brought up in his father's house for 3 months. But when he was set out, Pharaoh's daughter took him away and brought him up as her own son. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and was mighty in words and deeds. Now when he was 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel. And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended and avenged him who was oppressed, and struck down the Egyptian. for he supposed that his brethren would not have understood that God would deliver them by his hand. But he supposed that his brethren would have understood that God would deliver them by his hand, but they did not understand. And the next day he appeared to two of them as they were fighting and tried to reconcile them, saying, Men, you are brethren. Why do you wrong one another? But he who did his neighbor wrong pushed him away, saying, Who made you a ruler and judge over us? Do you want to kill me as you did the Egyptian yesterday? Then at this saying, Moses fled and became a dweller in the land of Midian, where he had 2 sons. God bless the reading of his holy word today. The life of Moses can be divided into 3 sections, 3 evenly divided sections. First 40 years, he was thinking he was somebody. He spent his time in the first 40 years in the palace with the royal family and his teachers. In the second 40 years, Moses spent thinking he was nobody. He spent his time with sheep and goats in the desert. And then the last 40 years, Moses spent seeing what God can do with somebody who was a nobody. And he spent his time with the Israelites, leading them through the wilderness. Well, we mentioned his first 40 years, he was in the palace of Pharaoh. It's a rags to riches story. He's a poor Hebrew slave child, and then he becomes raised by the Pharaoh's daughter, and he becomes royal family. Rags to riches. 3 months old and dumped in the river. It doesn't get lower than that. But he was rescued by the grown daughter of Pharaoh. Separated from his family at such an early age, had to leave some kind of scar on his life or in his mind. Moses did not have it easy even in the palace. He was given a formal education. He was raised to become a ruler, trained intensively to be a man of great power. To whom much is given, much is required. God wasn't wasting this training that Moses was receiving. His training curriculum likely included things like political science and public administration, religion, history, literature, geometry, engineering. He got the best education possible. The text says that Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and deeds. He was a powerful man. The historian Joseph wrote of Moses, he was educated with great care. I like that. Moses had he had overcome his difficult start in life. Now he had it all. He was somebody, or at least he thought he was. He's ready to do something with his life at age 40. And now he would do something for his people and for God. Age 40, he visited his brethren, the Hebrews. He saw an Egyptian mistreating one of the Hebrews, and Moses intervened. He killed the Egyptian out of anger. What was Moses thinking? What good could possibly come from killing that Egyptian? Deep in the heart and character of Moses was a compassion for the oppressed. And God, of course, made him that way, and he would be the one who God would use to take the oppressed Hebrews out of Egypt. The text says it came into his heart to visit his brethren. That tells us how it came into his heart. That too was God. To visit means to bless or to harm. His intention was to bless. He tried to bless them, but they didn't understand what Moses was doing. In Exodus 2:11 through 12, it tells us that Moses killed in anger with premeditation. But the Hebrews rejected him. He thought they would understand, but they didn't understand his heart, his motive. What a sad statement in verse 25. He supposed that his brethren would have understood, that God would deliver them by his hand, but they did not understand. You can't be a leader unless people follow. And Moses wanted to lead them then, but they weren't willing to follow. Have you ever had that experience when your motives were not understood? You thought they would be understood. You thought it was clear that your heart was in the right place. Your motives were pure. It really hurts to be misunderstood. The very next day, Moses sees not an Egyptian oppressing a Hebrew, but a fellow Hebrew oppressing a Hebrew. And he tries to reconcile them. Your brothers, what are you doing? Wronging one. Excuse me. Why do you wrong one another? And their answer was, who died made you king? Who made you a ruler and a judge over us? You want to kill me like you did the Egyptian yesterday? At that moment, of course, Moses realized that his secret act of murder, burying the Egyptian in the sand, was seen by others, and the word had already spread widely. All the way to Pharaoh. Pharaoh hears about it, and Moses' life is forever changed. He goes on the run, running for his life. He flees Egypt. His career is over with just one mistake. He's not seen as the kind of leader that men will respect and follow. And now he's running for his life. Moses fled to Midian, another country, to continue his education in the school of hard knocks. He spends the next 40 years in graduate school, I would like to call it. God stripped Moses of his position of honor and power in Egypt. God gave Moses 40 more years to prepare for leadership, to think about what he'd already done wrong as a leader, and to talk to him gently or forcefully about his anger problem. From somebody to nobody, from prince to student, from palace to the desert, from royal family to sheep, a big flock of sheep. Where is a better place to learn God's ways than out in nature, in the wilderness, apart from all the distractions of modern life? Paul did the same thing when he first became a Christian. God prepared him by him spending years alone in the wilderness. God has a work for Moses to champion and deliver the oppressed. That's his life's calling. But he has 40 years more to prepare for that. Because God's work must be done in God's way, in God's strength, and in God's time. We have to follow God to do God's work. Before one can be a good leader, he has to learn to be a good follower. And that's what Moses learned for 40 years. Now Moses is humble. He spends 40 years as a servant, serving his father-in-law's flock. 40 years learning to follow God. And God led Moses to water. And Moses in turn led the sheep to water or to grass. The Bible says, he who is faithful in the little things is faithful in much, and God will make ruler over much. Moses learned to tend a flock that belonged to someone else. And that's appropriate because Moses learned to rule over his own family. He ruled over somebody else's flock. And God used this to prepare Moses to lead God's flock. It isn't Moses' people. It's God's people that he leads. And he rules over God's family. He learned to do that by having a family of his own. As far as Moses knew, these last 40 years was all there was going to be to life. He didn't know what was coming next. but it was only preparation for the work of his life, his next work. I have a dear cousin out in Idaho. His wife trained to be a lawyer. She took a degree in political science in pursuit of becoming a lawyer. Instead, she became the wife of a military attaché who was my cousin. He was the attaché to Indonesia, huge country. God knew precisely what he was preparing for, but she didn't have a clue until all this took place. Well, after 80 years of preparation, God decided Moses was ready to do his life's work. His internship was over. God called Moses and sent him to deliver God's people out of slavery in Egypt and lead them through the next 40 years in the wilderness. One step at a time. Moses didn't know what was coming next. Moses felt like a nobody, but he learned that God is sufficient. That God has enough of whatever it takes. God does things by his own strength, not by man's strength. Moses learned that God can use a nobody with character to do a great work. Moses faced a challenging job, but he didn't face it alone. So I have a question. Where are you in your walk with God? Are you in the first 40 years thinking you're a somebody? Having arrived? Thinking this is what your life is all about? Are you in that second stage of life where you become humble and you learn that you're not a somebody, you're a nobody? A nobody very dependent upon God. Are you educated and powerful and know that what you want to accomplish in life and how to get it done? Do you think you're a somebody? Sooner or later, everybody makes mistakes. Moses made one mistake and his career was over in Egypt. We all make mistakes, and in one day, our success can all come crashing down. Are you in that second stage where you already know you're a nobody without God? That doesn't mean you're a nobody. It means you really need God. You've had time to think. You've had time to learn some of God's ways. You've been developing a relationship with God and you want to serve him. My advice is to be patient. Wait on God. Let him lead you. Look for him in every burning bush. Listen for his still small voice. This time of your life, this year, this month, this week, this day, is just as important as any other time in your life. Do faithfully whatever God gives you to do today. Raising your family, tending sheep, worshiping in the desert, whatever it is. Maybe you're in that third part. You've heard the call to serve, but you believe you're not an eloquent speaker or you lack in some other way. Remember, God made you and has given you all you need to follow him. So follow. He does the leading. You do the following. It's that simple. Right now, today, make your decision to be a great follower like Moses. You can spend the rest of your life serving God and finding out what God can do with a somebody who was a nobody. Moses didn't get it all right. He still had a problem with his anger. He struck a rock in anger, and for that, God did not let Moses enter into the promised land in his lifetime. But after his lifetime, imagine his joy. The joy of Moses, the follower, the day God led him through the promised land. The day God took him by the hand and led him through the promised land. What a day, what a glorious day that was for Moses. And what a day that will be for us if we learn to be a follower of God. I have a song I'd like to sing. There is coming a day when no heartache shall come, no more clouds in the sky, no more tears to dim the eye. All is peace forevermore on that happy golden shore. What a day, glorious day that will be. What a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see, and I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace, when he takes me by the hand and leads me through the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be. Thank you for worshiping with me. God bless you today. Serve him and follow him and listen for his voice as he leads you today. God bless you.